Well, hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Blair Lamb. I make videos about all the different parts of my life. Today I'm going to share a little bit about our trip to California that my husband and I just took last weekend. We did a whole bunch of different things and went to a few different cities, so I just want to share sort of our itinerary with you. I had shared snippets for my Instagram subscribers of our trip every single day, and I had an overwhelming amount of requests from people asking me to please put this all in a video form so they could reference it, because it was truly maybe my favorite trip I've ever taken in my life. If not my favorite, it's in my top 2 or 3. Like, it was so much fun, so beautiful, relaxing, just everything you're looking for on a trip. We had such a nice time. So I'm just gonna walk you through the weekend. It was Friday morning through Monday evening. So it was just 4 days and 3 nights, and I'll just kind of talk you through what we did, where we went, what we ate, where we ate, everything, so that if you are looking for some recommendations, or if you just like hearing about trips, you can. Of course, as soon as I start filming, my little dog is over here like, Charlie, what are you doing? He's like playing with his toys and making all this noise. He's been asleep all morning, but now that I'm talking, he's thinking it's time for him to get going. Okay, so let's start with day 1. We left Dallas on a Friday morning. Our flight was at 6:50 in the morning, so we were leaving our home, waking up at like 3, leaving at like 4, and getting to the airport around 5 for our 6:50 flight. So it was a very early morning. The night prior to that, on Thursday night, my mom flew in. She had been on a work trip in Las Vegas, so she flew in from Vegas to Dallas, and then she was the one who stayed with our kids, for which we are so grateful, because it was really nice to know that they were in such good hands and they were having so much fun. She called it Camp Grammy and just did all kinds of things. So we left Dallas at 6:50 a.m. And then because of the time difference, we still arrived in California. We flew into the San Jose airport, and we arrived still, I think it was about 8:30 or so. So it was very, very early, because it was about a 3.5-hour flight. And then we're 2 hours difference from California Central Time to Pacific Time. So I believe that it was about 8:30. So we still had the entire day. So it was a very, very early morning, as you can imagine, but I was really grateful that we did that because we had plenty of time. So we rented our vehicle for this trip through Turo, which I had never done before. This is not sponsored, I'm just sharing my experience. So Turo is like an Airbnb for cars. So instead of going through a rental agency, you work with an individual, you select their car, it has its own website, it's spelled Turo, and you can choose whatever vehicle you want with whatever features you would want, and then you coordinate with the host of that vehicle, the owner of that vehicle, where you're going to pick it up. In our experience on this trip, it was significantly more smooth than any rental car experience that we've ever had through any of like the big players like National or Enterprise or Alamo or whatever. So we will definitely be doing Turo again. We have another trip at the end of this month and in October here, and we're using it again. It was just such a good experience for us. So we texted the guy and said that we had landed, who owned the vehicle. We rented a Ford Bronco with a soft top that you could pull off, which was so much fun to drive. We had such a great time exploring California in that Bronco, just like loved it. So it was really nice. It was almost like getting picked up at the airport, because we went out and he was just parked and he had an Uber waiting for him to take him back to his home. Presumably he has more than one vehicle and he uses this one for his Turo business. And so he like explained the car really briefly to us. We hopped into the car and we were on our way. So it was so quick. I mean, so quick getting out of San Jose into our rental car and on our way. So we drove from the airport to Monterey. So our hotel was actually in Carmel, and the drive from San Jose airport into Monterey was about an hour and a half. And when by the time we got there, I don't even think it was 10 a.m. yet. It was still so early. And we were laughing. We're like, can you believe like it's not even 10 o'clock in the morning and we're in a Bronco in Monterey, California. It was a beautiful sunny day. That might have been the best weather that we had, was that first day. So I'm really glad we had the entire day to enjoy it. So we went and parked at a parking garage in the kind of downtown area, and we walked well, I don't know if it's considered downtown. I would assume so. The main touristy area, let's say. So we parked and we walked down Cannery Row, which is really cool. It's where there used to be sardine factories and sardine packaging, canning facilities. And so it was really, now it's very, very touristy. There's like a Dippin' Dots store and like a palm reader and just all the normal, like a fudge shop and ice cream shop. It's like all that kind of stuff. But it was really cute and fun, and the weather was so beautiful. And it's right on the coast, which is really neat. So we walked up and down and saw everything that we wanted to see there. We popped into a few stores on Cannery Row. On Cannery Row, like towards the end, at the very end actually, is the Monterey Aquarium, which has been sometimes named the #1 aquarium in the whole world. It's like supposed to be incredible. We chose not to do it on this trip. We just didn't have enough time on this day, and then there was no other day that made sense for us to go into Monterey. But we also thought we'll definitely be back, hopefully sooner than later, and our kids would absolutely love to go to the aquarium with us. So I think that's what we're going to plan on doing, is doing a family trip at some point and going with our kids to the aquarium. But there were tons of field trips unloading from buses and families walking into the aquarium on that morning, which was really cute as well. We enjoyed that for a while, and then we decided we wanted to go down to Old Fisherman's Wharf, which is sort of like this boardwalk that's over the water, and it has restaurants and shops, and there's like a whale watching company with boats that depart every couple of hours, like all those kinds of things. It was very like meant for tourists, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. It was just very clear. I don't think like locals are hanging out there very often, but that's okay. So I had made on the airplane actually reservations for lunch at Old Fisherman's Grotto, which was a restaurant that's on Old Fisherman's Wharf. So what we actually did is rent bikes along Cannery Road, and we rode the bikes over to Fisherman's Wharf. It was not a long ride, but it was really nice to be on bikes because it was just so beautiful outside. The air felt so good. It was like warm, but there was a crispness to the air, and you could see the coast, and it was just lovely. So we rode our bikes down there and we locked them up, and then we went to Old Fisherman's Grotto for lunch. We went in for lunch, and they have won for 20 years in a row or something like that, the best clam chowder in Monterey County, which is a very big county from what I understand. So that was like impressive. So both of us got the clam chowder in bread bowls. Riley got his bread bowl that had like a garlic butter crust on it, and I just got the original. I think he got a beer and I got like a Diet Coke or something, and we just sat there and ate the clam chowder. It was so delicious. I don't like seafood, and I'm from Maryland, which is not a good combination. I do like crabs, so we've got that going for us, but overall I'm not a seafood person, but I can handle like a very creamy chowder. So we really enjoyed the clam chowder, and Riley ate like the entire thing, and he was laughing for the rest of our trip. He's like, I literally ate an entire loaf of sourdough bread. He's like, imagine, because I make sourdough bread. He's like, imagine if you made a loaf of sourdough bread and then I just came and ate the whole thing. He's like, I did that at that restaurant. But I think when it's just full of soup and we had been up since 3 a.m., it like just didn't faze him. So anyway, that was lunch, and it was really delicious. We walked up and down a little bit more Old Fisherman's Wharf, and I popped into one of the candy shops and got like a little chocolate, and it was really good. And then we got back on our bikes and rode back over to Cannery Row, where we had rented the bikes from. And so I think the company was maybe called Adventures by the Sea. The guy who rented us the bikes was very quirky and funny, but very sweet and helpful. So we put our bikes back, and we had paid by the hour. And so I think it was like $13 an hour or something for each of us. And we had, I think, ridden bikes for about 2 hours. So we returned the bikes. After we returned the bikes, it was probably about 2 p.m. And so we had a check-in at our hotel at 1 p.m. So by then we were like, let's head over to the hotel and get checked in. So we drove from Monterey down to Carmel, and this hotel was by far the nicest, most gorgeous, best service, most incredible hotel I have ever stayed in my entire life. It was a 16-room boutique hotel, so not tons of people, not lots of guests. The staff quite literally knew us by name, both the day staff and the night staff, and they pampered us and treated us like we were royalty. It was an expensive hotel, and so I was hoping that it would live up to the price, and honestly, I would have paid more because I could not believe, I will tell you more about this hotel. It's so amazing. It's called Villa Mara, and it was about a 1-minute walk to the coast. So you could walk down, and there was this, I think it's called Sunset Beach, if I'm correct, in Carmel, and you could walk right down there, and it's just stunning beauty. It's nestled in a neighborhood, so it's not like a business district. It's like a very chill neighborhood. And the homes in this neighborhood came straight out of storybooks and fairy tales. They had thatched roofs, they had curved doors, these whimsical gardens. I can't explain how captivated I was by the neighborhood. And then if you walked a few blocks north of where we were staying, I think it was north. I was a little, yeah, I think it was north. I'm a little turned around, not being able to like see it on a map, but there were streets of restaurants and little bookshop and clothing stores and gift shops and coffee shops and ice cream shops, and just it was so charming. It felt like truly we had stepped onto the pages of a storybook. I could not believe it. Everywhere you turned was just beauty and precious buildings, and like, oh my gosh, we loved it. I totally fell in love with Carmel. I'm like, can I retire here? I think every single house is about 6 to 25 million, but you know what? Maybe I'll sell a lot of t-shirts. We'll see. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So we walk into Villa Mara, and immediately the guy there is like, hey, why don't you guys grab a seat here, and what would you like to drink? We love to, give you a welcome drink. And I said, I'll have a glass of red wine, and I think Riley actually had a glass of red wine too. So we had a glass of wine, and he's like, I'm gonna go double check that your room is all set up for you and all ready. And then he gave us a key, and it's like, it was an actual golden key. It was so charming, everything about this trip. So we went down, he helped bring our luggage in, and our room was gorgeous. It was spacious and clean, and the bathroom was so neat. It had heated tile on the floor, so your feet were all warm getting ready in the morning and at night. It had a bidet on the toilet. It had like the most luxurious, delicious smelling soap. Actually just took a shower, and I was just thinking in the shower how much I missed that soap. It was the shampoo, the conditioner, and the body wash were all like perfection. It was just nice. Like everything was so well done. And so we got settled in. We took a nap for a couple of hours because we, again, had gotten up so early in the morning that we were very tired by that point. And I swear there was some kind of like magical spell over that room, because the two of us, every nap that we took and every evening, we slept so soundly. I came back from this trip feeling so refreshed and rejuvenated. It was a huge gift. Like, we have been very strung out for the past few months with everything that's been going on. So being able to just take a breather was very, very nice. So we slept for a couple of hours, and then we got up and we got dressed for dinner, and we had made reservations earlier in the day, actually also on the airplane on the flight over here, at a little restaurant called Portobello, I believe. And it was, again, a fairy tale looking restaurant. Like, you'll see pictures here. It was so beautiful. And so we went inside, and they seated us in the back, and I felt like we were in like Snow White's cottage or something. It was lovely. I'm going to say that 100 billion times because I couldn't believe how charming just everywhere we went was. Everything had so much character and so much charm. So we went and we're seated, and we had a really yummy meal. Riley got a beer, and I had an apple martini, which I love apple martinis, pear martinis, any kind of like fruity martini, love. So I had an apple martini. It was amazing. And then we got our meals, and let's see, what did I get? I got the braised short rib, which was amazing. And Riley got the carbonara. So we both had an amazing, delicious meal. I forgot to mention earlier that when we were riding bikes in Monterey and doing all of that, we also got to see the sea lions, which was a hysterical experience. There are so many of them and they have the funniest personalities. They're all climbing on top of each other, slapping each other. They're like barking. They're just wild and we loved watching them. So anyway, back to dinner. We finished up dinner. We didn't get dessert. We were very, very full, especially Riley. He's like, I ate an entire loaf of sourdough. Like, I'm done for the day. I'm like, I hear you, I hear you. So we headed back over to our hotel and we sat out by the fire pit that night. They had 3 or 4 fire pits around the little property that they would light every evening, and it was so cozy. They would bring you a blanket out if you were sitting out there, come ask you if you wanted a glass of wine or a drink of any kind. And it was just, we felt so pampered. So we went and sat out by the fire. I'm just gonna look at my pictures on my phone, make sure I don't miss anything. Sat by the fire. It was very, very nice. It felt so good. There was no one else out there. It was very quiet and just peaceful. And then we came inside. I took a hot shower and put on a hotel robe. I love a hotel robe. And just snuggled up and I fell asleep and just slept like straight through the night. I think I went to bed at 9 o'clock and just slept. I think I was up at like 5 though, because I don't normally go to bed at 9, but it was lovely. And so that was our first day. On our second day, which was Saturday, we woke up in the morning. Again, we were both up very early. We were both up and at 'em by 6 for sure, if not earlier. And so we went and got dressed and we walked around the property a little bit. And then included with our hotel was a breakfast every morning. And it was the best hotel breakfast I've ever experienced. That is the theme with this hotel. Just best, nicest, most luxurious, best service, incredible. So we went up into, they call it the living room because it's just such a small hotel. It was very cute. And we sat down at a table and there's this sweet woman who worked every morning. Her name was Rocky, which is such a cool name. And she came over and she was like, would you like coffee or tea? And that morning we both got hot coffee and they come in these beautiful big mugs and everything just felt like luxury. And so then she said, would you guys like to start off with a pastry? And so we both got almond croissants that morning. And that is the best almond croissant I've ever had in my life. I love almond croissants and it was perfect. And I asked, did they make them in-house? And she said, no, there's a bakery around the corner that they have a partnership with and they go every morning and pick up fresh. They had like chocolate croissants, almond croissants, morning buns, scones. They had all different variety of pastries. And it wasn't like out in like a case or anything. Like they went back and put it on a beautiful little plate with like a little doily thing that had the hotel inscripted on it and then a little thing of side of fruit that came with it. Everything was just done so beautifully. And so they brought those out and we ate those up and then she came back over and asked us what we would like off like the entree menu. And they had everything that from like overnight oats and a yogurt parfait to hard-boiled eggs with toast, to 3 different kinds of quiche. So I got the ham and cheese quiche, which also came from the local bakery, and it was so, so good. I have this egg intolerance. I'm intolerant to egg whites, but not egg yolks. But I have found that I don't get nauseous when I eat a baked egg. So like I make an egg casserole. It's like a big thing in our family, and that doesn't make me sick. Quiche doesn't make me feel sick, but any other kind of egg makes me, it's very bizarre. But anyway, I was able to eat the quiche, thank goodness, because it was amazing. So we ate the quiche, we were very full with the croissants, and I got quiche, and I think he got quiche that morning too. Delicious, drank like a pot of coffee between the two of us, and we just sat and we could like talk, and it was so nice. It was just so peaceful. Then we went back to our room and put on our shoes, and I mean, we had shoes on, but I think we put on like tennis shoes and stuff because we were going hiking this day and exploring on some trails at a national reserve. So we went to Point Lobos State Natural Reserve, which was probably about 8 to 15 minutes away from our hotel. It was not a bad drive. So we went and parked and we got a trail map. And we had asked some friends who used to live in California. My friend Ange, actually, she lived in California a while back, and they had been hiking at this place. I'm like, do we need real hiking shoes? Because I don't have any. And she said, no, just tennis shoes, sneakers are fine. So we laced those up and we went and we walked for 3 or 4 hours and we just explored everything. We did almost every single trail. It was stunning. That rocky coastline with the beautiful water coming over. We saw birds, we saw sea lions, all of the trees, and Oh my gosh, like I felt like I was in some mystical, magical forest. It was truly gorgeous and so relaxing. And we just walked and talked about everything and just we weren't interrupted and it was beautiful outside. It was overcast and foggy, but and a little chilly, which was nice because we weren't getting sweaty. But not cold, just comfortable. Like we were just really comfortable. And we walked, I think, 4-ish miles total. And we had the best time. It was so much fun. That was Riley's favorite part of our whole trip. And it might have been mine too. It was just such a peaceful, beautiful day, reconnecting with nature, reconnecting with each other. We absolutely loved it. So after we finished hiking there, we got back in the car. I'm gonna make sure I don't miss anything. And we ended up driving down to Big Sur, which is something that I was very, very excited to see. I've always wanted to see Big Sur and go there and just like you hear about it and I just wanted to see it. And it was truly so captivating and I can see why people talk about it all the time as just being such a gorgeous location. So we were hungry by that point for lunch, as you can imagine, after hiking so much. So we drove down to Big Sur. We got to go over the bridge, the Bixby Bridge, which honestly was scary to me. Like I was like, this is like very, very high up, but also really cool. So the drive down the coast is just gorgeous on what is it, Highway 1, and it was lovely. Everything on this trip was lovely. So we got down there and for lunch, we went to this restaurant that I had heard so much about. Many of you recommended it and it's called Nepenthe, Nepenthe, Nepenthe. And it's been around for a while. It's 808 feet above sea level and it was built in 1925 and then was taken over by the current family that owns it in 1947. So you walk up, you drive kind of up this hill or mountain or cliff or something, and then you park and then you walk up a whole bunch more stairs and you get to the very top. And that's where the restaurant is. And it was so cool. It was so cool. They had like portable heaters by the tables and all of the tables looked out over the view, which it was kind of foggy that day, so we couldn't see super far. So it felt like we were just like floating in the clouds and dining in the clouds. It was really, really, really cool. The whole vibe up there was so neat. And there were people of all different, like you could tell some people had come from hikes, some people were dressed up, everybody was doing it their own thing. And so we got a cheese board to start. I got a glass of wine and some water, and he got a beer and some water. And we ate the cheese board, and then for lunch we split. They have a burger there they're famous for. It's called the Ambrosia Burger. So the two of us split the Ambrosia Burger for our meal after we also, like had the cheese board. So then we were good to go. And it was really good. Like I can see why they're famous for it. So we finished up our lunch there and then we walked down the stairs into the gift shop. It was actually like a really cool, big multi-story gift shop kind of built onto the same hill. And so we walked around there for a while and just looked at, they had art and everything a gift shop normally has. And we kind of looked around. And it was so nice and just beautiful, and we really enjoyed it. So we finished up there at Nepenthe, and then we went over to Pfeiffer Beach. And Pfeiffer Beach is a beach within Big Sur. And so we wanted to see it because we'd heard it was beautiful. So we went into Pfeiffer Beach. It's kind of like a windy drive to get back to it. And then we walked it for about an hour, and just took pictures and like with the big, huge rocks, and some of them have a hole in it. So like if the sun's setting, the sun comes through, just gorgeous. It was foggy. It wasn't sunset time yet, although there wasn't going to be a visible sunset on that night anyway, but it was really fun and we just walked around and had such a nice time. And after all of that, we were exhausted. So we drove back to our hotel and took a nap for a couple of hours. And then when we woke up from our nap, I was still so full from lunch. That burger was huge and whatever. So I ate some snacks. There were all these snacks in our hotel. So I ate some trail mix and some chocolate covered almonds, and I felt like very satiated and good for the night. And Riley was hungry, so he door dashed some kind of like a poke bowl or something. He door dashed that, and we went and sat in the living room area. And while we were there, they were like, "Would you like a fresh slice of cake?" And we were like, And they said, every night we have a fresh baked slice of, fresh cake, and our guests are welcome to enjoy a slice. And I was like, yes, I am not hungry, but I have like a second dessert stomach, so I will have a slice of cake. And it was a lemon poppy seed cake with raspberry filling and amaretto cream frosting, and it was the best cake. So I had some cake, and then someone else came out, one of the staff members, and said, would you like a pot of tea, maybe some sleepy time tea? And I said, I would. And so they brought me this beautiful, all the presentation, everything was so beautiful. And it was sleepy time tea, like loose leaf tea that they had steeped for me. And I poured it out into my little teacup and added some honey, and I sipped on sleepy time tea. And I just thought, I'm in heaven right now. This is the best day of my life. It was just so wonderful. So Riley ate his food. I had my tea and cake, and we went back down. I think we actually went outside and sat by the fire again for a little bit, but it started misting and raining. So we decided to turn in for the evening because I was sore the next day after hiking so much. So we went to bed and got a really good night's sleep so we could get up and have an awesome day 3. We woke up on day 3, which was Sunday, and we were very relaxed and just feeling like having a cozy day. This day was probably the worst weather, and I say that lightly because we were fine and we were outside throughout the day. It was a little bit misty throughout the day, so that made it hard to be like outside for blocks of time. But the afternoon, actually, it cleared up and it was beautiful and sunny. So it was really just the morning, and the activity that we did in the morning ended up suiting that kind of weather perfectly. So I'll tell you all about it. So we woke up that morning and we went up to breakfast again. And that morning I got some whole wheat sourdough toast from the local bakery as my starter, and I put some fresh strawberry jam and butter on it, and it was so yummy. And I think Riley got a chocolate croissant that morning. And then for my entree, I got a yogurt parfait, and he got he got soft boiled eggs and like toast squares, and I think it came with like a little side salad or something. So that was our breakfast, and I got English breakfast tea because I had enjoyed the tea experience so much from the previous night. And Riley got coffee every morning. He's not a tea guy. So we finished up at breakfast and all of that, and we decided to go on the 17-mile drive in Pebble Beach. So Pebble Beach is, all of these locations are like all kind of in the same vicinity. It wasn't a very long drive at all. So the 17-mile drive was created back in horse-drawn carriage days when it would be a day trip. And so people would load up on their horse-drawn carriage, and then they had come up with, like, the visitor center or something had come up with like 17 stops around, like in this Pebble Beach vicinity, for people to see different things like Bird Rock, or this oak tree they call it the lone oak, that's way out on this cliff, and it's like been up there for 100 years and nobody can figure out how it's not blown over yet or whatever. Like, they're just 17 nature related stops. Well, I would say like 14 nature related stops, and the last few are like the visitor center, things like that. The golf course, of course, at Pebble Beach is world renowned, and Riley has recently taken up golf, so he was very excited as we were driving the 17-mile drive. It was alongside many different parts of the golf course, and he thought that was really cool to get to see, and he was like, that would be so hard. I would never be able to do that, whatever. But he was really enjoying. Maybe one of these years he can actually play, but I'm pretty sure it is wildly expensive to play at Pebble Beach because it has such a reputation. So he's like, we are not spending money on me playing at this point. And I'm like, well, maybe one day. So anyway, we drove through all the 17-mile drive stops. Everything was gorgeous. It was really lovely, and it was fun to see. But I will say that we had already seen all very similar things when we had gone to Point Lobos the day before, and being on foot and up close, right, like walking through it, had more of an impact than driving. Now, we did get out at all of the 17 locations and stops, but still, there was just something about navigating it all by foot that was like really special and fun. What I originally wanted to do was rent e-bikes because it is very hilly, and do the 17-mile drive on bikes. But it was so misty and kind of rainy that day that I felt like it might be pretty miserable. We didn't really see anyone doing bikes. So I think that would have been really fun. I don't regret doing it. It's just that in comparison to Point Lobos hiking, which we saw very similar things. We also saw like a Bird Rock. We saw the same sorts of trees. We saw the same, cliffy, rocky shorelines. Being up close as we were hiking was just more impactful, like I said. That said, being in Pebble Beach and going to the visitor center and seeing all of the golf history that has taken place there was something that Riley really enjoyed. And frankly, I enjoyed it too. And so we looked all around, we looked through the gift shops. Riley bought a really cool polo that has Pebble Beach embroidered on it, which she was excited about. We bought my mom a hat, like a sporty hat, because she's always playing pickleball, and we thought she could wear it playing pickleball, that was embroidered again that said Pebble Beach, to thank her for watching our kids since she was back in Texas with our kiddos. And yeah, we just walked all around there. As the weather began to clear up, we decided it would be a great opportunity to go park in the downtown Carmel area and really explore it, because the only time we had been there so far was going to dinner at that Portobello restaurant on the first night, and it was dark. It was still gorgeous, but it wasn't, you know, sunshiny. So the fact that it was sunshiny was perfect, because we walked up and down, I mean, all the streets. We went to, you know, the famous Carmel cheese shop. We went to, there's this teeny tiny little bookstore. It's the last bookstore in Carmel, and it's like this little hallway. We went in there, and, you know, we just went into all these different shops. We got a nice coffee and a nice chai at this little tiny place, and walked all around and explored downtown Carmel for quite a few hours. It was really fun. And the weather, like I said, was perfection. So that was really nice. Sunny, breezy, just very nice. After a few hours, we got hungry. And so I kept hearing about this restaurant called, I think it's called La Bicyclette. I don't speak French, but Le Bicyclette, something like that. The bicycle in English. And so I kept seeing it as a recommendation, and then we stumbled upon it. So I went up to the hostess and said, do you have any availability? She said, we do. So she sat us down, and I'm so glad that we did that. It was amazing. It was so amazing. Again, it was like our hotel. Everything was just special. I ordered a Diet Coke, and they brought this little silver tray with like a cup of ice and a straw laid out and a can of Diet Coke. And it was like the whole presentation. And Riley ordered a beer, and it came with this tiny little dish with 3 little cheese cubes that like accompany the beer. And then we ordered a charcuterie board that was amazing. It had all this fresh, delicious local stuff on it. And then we split a pizza that had squash and arugula and I don't know if it was goat cheese or feta or some. It was amazing. We loved it. And they had a wood fire brick oven pizza oven. You know what I'm saying? And so it was that perfect crust. It was just so good. So we sat there for a while and just enjoyed lunch. And they put us at a really cool window seat so we could see out, and we just watched the passings by and everybody walking around and people walking their dogs and families. And it was a lot of couples. There were fewer families for sure in Carmel, because there wasn't as much family-oriented touristy stuff. But it was really nice for adults. So there were, I would say, definitely more adults than children in Carmel, and there were more families in the Monterey area when we went. But either which way, we really enjoyed our lunch at that restaurant, and continued to walk around and see all the most charming. I mean, the fire station was charming. The cheese shop was adorable. Like, everything was perfect. It was just precious. And so we were starting to wind down for the day, and we went back to our hotel. We had the lunch it was like a lunch dinner. It was like late, like maybe 4 or 5 in the afternoon that we ate. So we knew we weren't going to eat dinner. That was kind of like a 2-for-1, because these meals are like, we're not used to eating, like sitting down and eating like an appetizer, sometimes getting a drink and then a full course. It's like, we're not used to that. But so we were full. And so we went back to the hotel and we sat out by the fire. And we had so much fun. We laughed until we cried sitting out there. Riley was doing this crossword puzzle, and he does the New York Times crosswords. And this was Sunday, which is the hardest one of the week. And I just think they're so outrageous. Like, the clues don't make any sense, and I just can't stand them. I don't think it's fun at all. And on the other hand, Riley thinks they are the most fun a person can have. So he was asking me, and we were like laughing. And then one of the women that worked there, who had been in the hotel industry, service industry, she said she was a private flight attendant for years and years, and then she settled in Carmel and is, you know, been in hospitality. Her name was Olivia, and she was just like, again, off the pages of a storybook. She was just so sweet. So she came out with us and brought us some wine and cake, and then we were sitting there, and she was like helping us with the crossword, and it was so much fun, y'all. We just had so much fun. So we did all of that and then went to bed. We were out there for 3 or 4 hours, just sitting outside laughing by the fire. And then we went to bed. We went to bed early every night of this trip, and it was so nice. It was so nice. And not having to do the whole bedtime routine. I actually love the bedtime routine with my kids. It's a very sweet and tender time of day. But just to be able to just like wash my face, brush my teeth, and get in bed for 3 nights was very nice. So we got in bed and got a great night's sleep. And then it was the next day, day 4. So our last day was Monday. And so we woke up and of course started our morning with breakfast. So we went up and sat at the counter this day. We had sat at the tables the previous 2 days. So we sat at the counter and sweet Rocky was our server. Again, she was so sweet. And so I got English breakfast tea. He got coffee. I got the almond croissant again because I had to have another one before we left. And Riley got the cinnamon morning bun that morning. He loved it. It wasn't very sweet, so that wouldn't have been my favorite, but he loved it because he doesn't like a lot of sweets. So we did that. And then for breakfast, he got the overnight oats and really enjoyed them. And I got the ham and cheese quiche again. So I did a repeat of what I had gotten the first day because it was just like amazing. So we ate breakfast and we chatted with Rocky. We were talking about true crime podcasts, and she was telling us about some of the local, stories that we had heard of and telling about like what she had heard from people. It was like such a fun conversation. We loved it. So we talked for a while and then we had to say goodbye and check out. So we went back down to our room, and we had already packed that morning because we were getting up so early. We were still on Central Time for sure. So we got up and went down to our room, just made sure everything was packed up and loaded it up into the car, and then checked out of the hotel. They made it so easy. You literally just dropped the key off and you were done. They email you everything. So we said goodbye and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this hotel. But before we actually left the hotel, we walked down, like I said, it's like a 1-minute walk. And we walked down along the coast one more time and walked all through the neighborhood one more time and just got to like soak it all in one more time. Because we were gonna go into San Jose for the day to go to the Winchester Mystery House, which I will talk about in a second. So that's what we did. So then we loaded up into the Bronco and we drove about, like I said, an hour and a half up the coast to San Jose because that's where we were flying out of in the evening, and we wanted to do the Winchester Mystery House during the day. I think that leads us to the Winchester Mystery House. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. No. Okay, so the Winchester Mystery House was built by Sarah Winchester, and the story that you will hear, the very broad brushstroke story that you will hear, is this really crazy lady moved out to California and built this really crazy house that makes no sense. But actually going to the house and seeing it in person and walking through it and hearing the full story was very, very intriguing. It's also very well known as being one of the most haunted houses in America, which was so exciting to Riley, as you can imagine. And it was the inspiration for a whole lot of Haunted Mansion. So the story overall goes that this woman, Sarah Winchester, she grew up on the East Coast. She married her childhood sweetheart who had invented the Winchester rifle. So they became so rich so fast. And so the two of them had a daughter named Annie, and the baby sadly died very shortly after birth of a rare condition. And then very shortly after that, her husband died. So she was widowed and without her child, and it was like so heartbreaking hearing this story. So I guess she was looking for answers or next steps. I think she was probably in a deep grief spiral. And so she goes to a psychic. The psychic says, something along the lines of like, you are going to be haunted by all of the spirits who have ever been killed by a Winchester rifle. And so you need to like go and build a place for them to like dwell, and it needs to be like way out west. So she moves to San Jose and buys like this small 8-room farmhouse. And then the other part of the thing that the psychic had said was that in order to keep any of the bad spirits that wanted to do her harm away, she needed to constantly be doing construction on the house and never stop doing construction on the house. And so that's what she did. So she moved out to San Jose, bought this little farmhouse, and built it over the course of 38 years, day and night, 24/7, 365. She had construction going on it. And the result is a house that makes little to no sense. From the outside, it's really beautiful. From the inside, it is just wild. There are stairs that go to nowhere that were alleged to confuse the spirits, cabinets that open that there's no cabinet, it just looks like a cabinet, doors that don't go anywhere, doors that look like you're going into another interior room and then it's an 8-foot drop. And it was all about like trying to confuse the spirits. There was like a seance room. It was just all this stuff going on. And so for 38 years, like until the time of her death, from the time she heard that from this psychic to the time of her death, she never ceased construction. It was day and night and day all the time. And so she would have them build, like she had the house as it stands today is like 160 rooms, but at one point it was 500 rooms. So she would have them build rooms just to tear them down and build rooms just to tear them down. And it was just wild. And it really honestly made me really sad for her because it sounds like she had some pretty serious mental health issues that may or may not have been the result or may not have been exacerbated by profound grief and depression. And I'm just like, oh, it makes me sad for her that she lived her whole life in that state of mind. It sounds a lot like obsessive compulsive disorder to me. So I mean, I'm not going to diagnose someone who's passed away, but it was just, honestly, it was much deeper than like a crazy woman who built a crazy house. I felt so sad for her. I'm like, oh my gosh, her whole life was dedicated to this like wild advice that she received. And that's like what she did with her whole life. And so anyway, we toured the whole house and it does have an eerie feeling. It definitely has like an eerie feeling to it. And our tour guide was telling us about different ghost encounters that she's had and all the, all of that. So we walked all through it and we saw all the different rooms and, I love touring historical homes and some of them are just so beautiful. And this one was just not like beautiful because it made no sense. It was complete chaos. And I was telling Riley when we had visited Galveston years ago, 2017, I think, we toured the Moody Mansion, which is my favorite historical home I've ever toured. I loved that home. I felt some connection, like kindred spirit, like to that home. And when I walked in, I just felt so peaceful and just like, I loved it. When I was in this Winchester house, I felt pure chaos and I was excited to get out of it. I was like, I just feel like it was just not a good feeling. But it really was interesting to tour it. And we had listened to 2 different podcasts going over the history of the house on the drive to it so that we had more background even than what the tour guide had the chance to tell us during our, hour-long tour. So after that, we walked around the grounds for a while as well. And that was it was just very interesting. I wouldn't say like fun would be the word to describe it, but I had a lot of curiosity about it. It was very interesting. Honestly, my overwhelming feeling was sadness for Sarah Winchester. But we did that, and I was glad that Riley has always wanted to see that house. And after I learned more about it, I was really intrigued by it as well. So we did that for a while, a couple of hours, and then right across the street from it is a huge mall. So we went there and got lunch at the food court. So Riley got some ramen or noodles or something like that, and I got some Greek food from Nick the Greek, and we sat there and ate it. And then we went within the mall, they have an Eataly, and so we went into the Eataly and got some gelato. It was so yummy. I haven't had gelato in years. And so we got some gelato and enjoyed that, and that was like our last treat of the trip. So then we loaded up the Bronco, drove over to the airport, loaded up the Bronco with our bodies, I guess. We didn't really load it up because it was already loaded up. We drove to the airport, and the guy that we had rented the car from was so nice. He was like, just park it in the closest lot. I don't care how expensive it is. Just leave the parking ticket in it, leave the key in it, and just, go on into the airport. So it was like super convenient. You don't have to ride like a shuttle bus. So we just walked right into the airport and I don't even think we grabbed any food or coffee or anything because we had just eaten. And so we walked up and down the airport a few times just to move our bodies before we sat on the flight. Our flight didn't depart until 7 p.m. So with the time difference, it was not going in our favor. So we didn't get home here in our house until around 2 a.m. And then our kids were up at about 5. So it wasn't a great night's sleep that night, but it was a really fun day. So that was our California trip. This was a trip that I will remember for the rest of my life, and it was really sweet because I didn't know this, but when I was there in Carmel, I just I just felt wrapped in a warm blanket. I loved it. Literally and figuratively wrapped in a warm blanket. And my mom texted me and she said, I just remembered that my mom, who was my mom's mom, my maternal grandmother, she'd passed away in 2020. My mom said, I forgot that my mom's favorite city ever is Carmel. And she used to just gush about it, probably like I am now. She used to gush about it and talk about it. And at one point in time, Clint Eastwood was the mayor of Carmel, and my mom and her husband, who's not my biological grandfather, but he was the only grandfather I ever knew on that side. We call him Pop Pop. So my mom and Pop Pop met Clint Eastwood at like some restaurant somewhere. And I was like cracking up. I'm like, of course, because my mom is, if you've seen my other vlogs and you've seen my mom and you've seen like how vivacious my mom is the original OG source of that. She is like, she was like larger than life. I miss her dearly. And so that made me like just even more, it just sweetened the trip even more for me that I was somewhere, and I didn't even know it. I was somewhere that just she had loved so deeply, and now I was completely, deeply in love with as well. So we will absolutely be back. There's so much to do and explore. That part of the country is just stunning. I love the energy and like vibes and just general culture of that area. Like everyone's just laid back. Like people are so, I mean, that's how it is around here too, honestly. Like a southern small town, people are just really laid back. And I really, really prefer that. Like I really like that. People aren't dressed too formally. Everyone's just like chatty and just relaxed. And we just had such a great time. I cannot wait. I'm counting down the days and months until we can get back. Hopefully next time we can take our kids. It would even be fun to do a little bit of a Cali road trip and do a couple of other spots as well. Because man, it was incredible. So highly recommend it if you are on the lookout, especially for an adults only trip. If you are also a parent with kids and you're looking to get away with your spouse or partner, like this was so great. There are tons of things also for kids to do. Our kids would have been too little for a lot of the stuff, like the hiking and stuff. I just don't think that would have gone over well, but older kids would have really enjoyed it too. So anyway, that was our California trip. We are so grateful that we got to go. Huge thank you to my mom for watching the kids, because that made a huge difference, just knowing that our kids were well taken care of and safe and sound at home while we went away for a few nights. And I can't wait until we can do it all over again. So thanks for watching. I hope this gave you a kind of a broad overview of our itinerary for the weekend, and let me know if you are heading to Carmel or Monterey or Big Sur or any Pebble Beach anytime soon. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Bye.